Mr. Hammond, thank you for coming to Athens. I feel really fortunate to live in a democracy where we have the kinds of opportunities for an organization such as yours to put together information. Living in a democracy is a real advantage. It's also somewhat of a burden. And in a democracy, it's important for all of us who are citizens, since we have a strong voice in what happens with the government, to make sure that we look at all the facts. And I would like to tell my fellow citizens of Athens tonight that I feel compelled to say that the emperor has no clothes. As someone who worked at Plum Island for 10 years and has worked all over the world on foot and mouth disease, bird flu, classical swine fever, rinderpest, I don't think I've ever heard such a flagrant misrepresentation of the diseases that are slated to be studied in NBAF. And I'm a little distressed, and I would hope that all of you here will seek out additional information, and there's going to be more public meetings. I'd like to say that although I have worked on these diseases, I am not necessarily an advocate of NBAF in Athens. I think that I believe our country needs NBAF. We don't need it for biodefense or agro-defense. We need it for the economic health of our agriculture. I think that NBAF should be placed in the very best possible location, and we do not yet have all the information that Athens might be that best location. So let's continue the dialogue and talk with each other and talk with our government. Thank you.
If I may, I mean, I've been accused of flagrant misrepresentation. Are there facts that you contest? Could you please point out any particular things? I mean, if there's something that, no, seriously, if there's something egregiously wrong that I said, I would be more than happy to, you should bring it up.
I do not intend to get into a debate here. This is your meeting, but I'm very happy to meet with you afterwards and we can go over some of these points.
I'd also like to say something in rebuttal to her statements regarding the current biocontainment lab and what we went through with that. So if you would like to listen to her first, go ahead, but I would like to say what I'd like to say.
What I would propose to do, I'm obviously a partisan in this, is my response was just simply that I agree, we certainly have a right to disagree. You said that I made flagrant misrepresentations.
Great, will you put up your myth number 1 slide, please?
Number 1.
Uh-huh.
Oh, myth number 1.
My name is Corrie Brown, and I'm a professor of pathology in the College of Veterinary Medicine here. I've been in Athens for 12 years. I live in the city of Athens. And prior to that, I worked at the Plum Island Animal Disease Facility for 10 years.
Yes.
The most desirable bioweapons are diseases that primarily infect animals, and you talk about zoonotic diseases such as equine encephalitis, Q fever, anthrax, brucella, tularemia, none of which are slated for work in NBAF. All right, myth number 2, please.
I would beg to defer with you on a matter of fact on that.
They are not on the list of 8 diseases that NBAF has said they will study. Well, they have issued a list.
Hasn't NBAF indicated that they remain wide open to study any diseases that should become a matter of national concern? I think the slate is wide open, friend.
Yeah, well, we can.
Okay,
so
the
there we have
slide,
a disagreement
please?
on fact. Okay.
And zoonotic is misspelled.
You got me.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. You talk about farm animals not being minuscule. That's true. But the farm animal would have to escape from the lab in order for the pathogen to get out?
Improper, if the animal is not processed properly, put in the tissue digester properly, it could also get out.
Yes,
If-
almost
if
all
an
of these
employee
agents are
contracts
rapidly
an
inactivated
infection in the
post-mortem.
If an employee contracts an infection in the course of handling that animal, it can get out.
None of the
I think
8 diseases that are slated for study in NBAF are contagious from human to human. May I see the next slide, please?
Okay.
You know, that is a really great question, and I think that's why we as citizens need to become more involved with the whole process. Because they're...
Okay.
Why do they need such a massive facility for 18 diseases?
18 diseases. Yes, well, yeah, I agree with you. I understand. But if a new disease surfaced in the world and it was a threat to the U.S., it should be studied by the U.S.
Okay, okay, I would like to be polite here, but it is true that they've stated that the diseases to be studied at NBAF can change as risk assessments change, and we aren't real sure even who is doing the risk assessment. So I think it's a good idea for you and Edward to talk after, because I think there are going to be more people that have questions.
One more clarification. The 1918 bird flu had nothing to do with the University of Georgia, that reconstruction of the virus. That was the U.S. Department of Agriculture in concert with CDC. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have 2 comments, and then perhaps that's the issue with 1918. Well, unfortunately, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the University of Georgia both say that it was the University of Georgia's Biosafety Committee that was supposed to oversee that, and I have that in writing from the Department of Agriculture if you would like to see it. On the other point, with respect to the list of diseases, and I guess we'll just have to disagree on that. In the initial conception, when they talked about NBAF, it was really wide. They were going to study everything under the sun. And then when the project began to run into political difficulties in some areas, including Washington, Homeland Security began to sort of scale down its description of what the facility would do. And part of the scale down, but not the facility itself, part of the scale down of the way that they talked about it publicly was to produce this list. And I will simply say that I would not believe that any such pledge from the Department of Homeland Security was worth the tissue paper that it was written on. And even if it was, the agents are not things that you want to have in your freezer.